leaders of the US, UK, and Australia will shortly be meeting in California. The Aukus summit is expected to decide on the next steps for delivering nuclear-powered submarines to Australia. The deal is hailed as a landmark step in military cooperation aimed at countering China's growing assertiveness in the Indo-Pacific region. Both British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and his Australian counterpart Anthony Albanese have arrived in the United States to participate in this meeting. They both were seen with each other ahead of the meeting. They will be joined by U.S. President Joe Biden. The three-way security pact was unveiled back in 2021 to counter Beijing's growing military footprint. The key element of AUKUS is that Australia will be receiving the potent nuclear-powered submarines from the United States. Till now, these submarines have only been shared with Britain, but Canberra can also get submarines built by London. This will allow Australia to maintain a robust underwater presence in the coming decades. Under the pact, Canberra could acquire up to 5 Virginia-class submarines from Washington in the 2030s. The deal is expected to help create new jobs in Britain and boost the sluggish economy. Reports from Australia say the plan will create 20,000 jobs. Tensions between the West and China are not hidden. Beijing has warned that AUKUS is creating a risk of flagging an arms race. It also accuses 3 countries of setting back nuclear non-proliferation efforts, but Australia has made clear that it will not pursue nuclear weapons, unlike its 2 allies. The benefits of the deal can also be channelized by India. India is already locked in a border dispute with China. Threats presented by the Chinese naval fleet in the Indian Ocean also pose a significant challenge for New Delhi. But with ties with Australia at an all-time high, the pact will further strengthen India's security cooperation with the nation. Australia will host the Malabar naval exercises later this year, in which India will also participate. These new alliances and drills will help India in securing its strategic maritime interests. Okay, to get to the heart of the matter, for more on this, we are joined by Mark Merowitz, political commentator and a professor at State University in New York Maritime College. He's joining us live from New York. Mark, welcome back. Good to see you. Okay. So this AUKUS deal and this meeting, it seems to be happening. First, let's talk about this meeting between the United States, UK, and Australia. Happening in California. It really does come at a sensitive time, especially for the United States and its relations with China.
Look, Xi Jinping has just solidified himself as leader for life and his power. The Chinese have been talking up aggressively against the United States, saying Xi Jinping, the United States is trying to contain China and circle China. But the actual truth is just the opposite. It's China that is expanding its power dangerously in the world. Just a few developments, obviously. As you mentioned, its militarization of the South China Sea, its threats against Taiwan, which most recently its new foreign minister has said the United States should not interfere with that. And furthermore, it's making the key elements of a deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran. It's pretty funny or ridiculous that China accuses the United States of nuclear non-proliferation violations when China is supporting Iran, which is building possibly a nuclear weapon. So you kind of have to look at the whole thing. And the last thing I would say, AUKUS is pivotal to this, and also the Quad, which features India, Japan, and Australia. This is a very big strategy of the United States and its allies. Be very candid to push back China's ambitions to control the region and the world. There's absolutely no question about it. And it's about time that these allies have awakened to the threat. The threat is not coming from the U.S. and its allies. The threat is coming from China. No question about it.
And can you give us a sense of the importance of AUKUS for the 3 partners? Australia's distrust of China, UK looking for influence, and of course, US motives, which you touched on a little bit.
Well, as far as Australia is concerned, you'll recall that when the Australians had the nerve, the temerity to question how COVID originated, the Chinese used, as we say, an elephant to crush a mouse, and initiated terrible boycotts against Australian beef and so forth. Australia is sitting in a very vulnerable area in the world, and it's also pivotal to the security of the world and the security of the Western alliance. There's no question about it. As far as AUKUS, I mean, with some of a little bit of a kerfuffle in the beginning, because France was kind of edged out of the deal and that's being worked out, the UK now becomes much more prominent. And in terms of the US, this is the only time the US has shared this kind of submarine nuclear technology with anyone other than Britain. So this enhances Australia's position. But Australia, if you look at their politics, I think it's pretty bipartisan, even here in the United States and in Australia, bipartisan support waking up to the confrontation with China that is no longer about trade competition, but is literally about the potential for calamity. I mean, it's interesting that the Chinese talk about the calamity constantly, the calamity of what the US is doing and these other allies are doing. But the calamity is really about the South China Sea, the Indo-Pacific, and the attempt to expand this power and take away freedom of navigation. And the really big one is Taiwan. And Taiwan, the rhetoric on Taiwan, The Economist magazine just had an entire section in this issue on Taiwan. That's the next flashpoint. So in preparing for these eventualities, the United States and its allies, including India, Australia, Japan, UK, and others, are getting together to formulate a strategy to literally contain China. I mean, I don't think it's a secret. NATO was set up to contain the Soviet Union and Russia, there's no question. And these allies are getting together to contain China. It's perfectly fine to have guardrails and have competition, which is what President Biden is talking about. It is not appropriate to cross the line over to confrontation and the potentiality for confrontation. And one would be frightened to think about Taiwan as a potential for invasion. That would be a calamity. And we know that President Xi is going to visit Putin next week. So what we're seeing is a series of worrisome developments, and the allies are reacting.
Mark Merowitz, thank you so much for joining us and for that elaborate analysis. Obviously, we're in a very different place than we were even a year ago, and we're moving really past that global world liberal order of the post-Cold War world war that so many of us knew. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much.